Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yance, and today my guest is Ben Meyerson. He is a director. Enjoy. Okay, today I have a special guest with me. I have Ben Meyerson. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
So, my first question is,
Oh, God.
what led you to the arts?
Well, pain.
Pain.
Yeah, I mean, no, yeah, it's a little facetious, but true. I wanted to be an actor,
Mm.
and I wanted to be an actor because as a kid, I had a difficult time. Is this already going to become a therapy session? I don't know, but I had a difficult time sort of communicating, expressing myself. And acting seemed like the logical solution remedy to that problem, which was self-expression and being able to connect to other human beings.
Mm.
And I guess it really started in high school, where I started doing school plays, and I consistently would get the leads, and
Yeah.
so I thought, okay, well, this is something I must be fairly good at. And but it was more therapeutic than anything. It was more
Mm.
about, I gotta find a way out of this place that I'm in, to be able to engage with the world and engage with humanity. And it sounds a little, coming out of my mouth, it sounds a little intense, a little deep. But that is, I would say, that would have to be the truth. Is it was about me discovering my connection to humanity.
Was were your parents supportive? Like, did
Oh, yeah.
they understand? That's good.
Not entirely true. My dad was a writer, and that's what brought us out to LA from New York when I was 2 years old. He wrote a show called The Monkeys, and
That's great. My mother loves that show.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, I know. I know the Monkeys.
Either you had no idea what.
Yeah, no, well, they were a first started off as a television show, and then they became a band, and now they're like kind of a well-respected band now.
Yeah, okay. Yes. So he wrote the pilot for that, and he came out then to be in the writers, to write for it, and so that's what brought us out here. Okay, where were we?
We're talking about the Monkeys.
That's right. But what was the original question? Because how did I get
the original question was, did your were your family supportive,
were they supportive
of the
yes. My father more hesitantly, he was more reticent about it. He didn't want me to get into this business, especially as an actor, because as a writer, and then he ended up as a writing producer, or what would be considered a showrunner today on Welcome Back, Kotter. He wrote the pilot, and then he was. You didn't see all this coming, did you?
No. This is great. John Travolta's Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where he came from.
John owes his career to my father. So is he
the famous one who came into the audition room and said, "You have to give me the part now, or I leave. You have to let me know. You have to let me know. I don't want to do a callback."
Not that I'm aware of. I never heard that story, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not true.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he was. I mean, he was nobody. I think he had done Grease on off Broadway or something at that point. But then of course things changed dramatically for him. But so with what was the question here?
Well, we're talking about Welcome Back, Kotter. Your father became the showrunner for Welcome Back, Kotter,
Right.
which that's amazing. So
That's
he also
exactly.
started with the Monkees, another show I know of, and now Welcome Back, Kotter.
I know.
Which
I
is
wish my dad were alive because he could be doing this interview. It would be far more interesting.
No.
So he was not supportive. He was not supportive. No, let me reverse. He was supportive in that he wanted me to be happy and he wanted me to do something that I was passionate about. But he also knew what this business was about. He knew the other side of it. He knew the casting couch because he was in casting, and he knew that it was extraordinarily competitive and challenging, and the odds were against you. So he did not want me to do it, and sort of the ego trips that are involved with being an actor and falling into that. So but he never dissuaded me. He just would, I would say he was neutral. You know, it was like, if that's what you want to do, yourself out, but
go off, walk the plank,
it's
kid.
not my, it's not my preference. It's not my, what? Yeah, say it again.
I said, yeah, go out, walk the plank.
Yeah. So, which he wasn't entirely wrong. You know, it is obviously a challenging business.
No, it's very challenging.
But it's interesting times, you know.
Was he able to introduce you to people? Did he, or was he against that?
No, I mean, I was introduced to people just circumstantially. I mean, it just happened to be that ABC Studios was a block away from my mother's home. So it was Talmadge Studios, ABC Studios in Los Feliz, and it's still there. And my mother and my parents divorced when I was soon after they moved out here. And so I lived with my mother, but it was just coincidentally where Welcome Back, Kotter was filmed was just a block away from my house, with my mother's house. So I walk down there after school every day, hang out on set, go eat at the commissary.
Wow!
Secretary, because she had never. And we would and hang out with the cast. Larry Hilton Jacobs was amazing. I mean, he took us to not Disneyland. What's the other one? To
Magic Mountain.
Magic Mountain one time. That's out here on the West Coast. Yeah, so it was a pretty unique childhood in that sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were already surrounded by a lot of this.
Yes.
This world. That's cool.
So did that
kind of reminds me of I don't know if you saw the last Paul Thomas Anderson film. I forget the name of it, but
Mystic, not Mystic Pizza.
Mystic,
no, it's not.
Pizza. Pizzazz.
No, hold on. I literally just saw it.
What is the name of it?
Come on now. Between the two of us.
I can't remember. I know.
It was. Was pizza in it?
I think pizza was in it. Yes, I'm looking it up right now.
Pizza.
Let's see. Licorice pizza.
Licorice pizza. Thank you.
Yes, you know, so you're like giving me flashbacks to that film.
Mystic Pizza?
No, Licorice Pizza.
Yes.
Because it's all about, like, when I saw it, I had no idea that it was going to be about like, oh, this guy's an actor. You know, this is somebody in this world, you know.
Yes, this is true. Yeah. Yeah, that was very much my world. I just watched Senior, with the documentary by Robert Downey Jr. about his father, and that was very much the world I grew up in. There was lots of drugs,
Yeah.
and it wasn't, when he was talking about his father doing drugs with him, not that my father and I did a lot of drugs together, but it just was different, and
It's a
it's hard.
different time.
Yeah, it was a different time, and parents today, including myself, have been so and are so protective of their children, to a fault. And back then, it was literally the polar opposite, man. We were on our own. We were on our
Yeah.
own, and they were rebelling against their parents, who were far more like we are today and much more restrictive, and trying to protect them from everything. And but I don't have any resentments or regrets about it. It was just the way it was, and it forced us to grow up, I guess, faster than this generation, which doesn't seem to be growing up at all. In
Yeah.
some sense, I mean,
Yeah. No, there's why do you think that? Do you think it is the overprotective nature that came from people that came from that? Do you think it's the parents that came from that era and they were
I
like,
don't know, because I'm one of them. I have a 19,
yeah,
and we're certainly getting off topic here, but
a little bit. I think this is applicable to
why not? Yeah, it's your interview,
That's
so
right.
I don't. I think that I don't think it's healthy. I think that parents in this last generation, by the way, including myself, have been far too fear-based. I mean, for all objectively, the world is a safer place, not taking into consideration, of course, global warming and climate change.
Yeah.
That's not safe. But the world is a safer place now than it was back in the 70s.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't.
Look at New York. I mean, New
Yes. Oh
York
my God.
resembles
70s, 80s,
nothing like
it
what
was
it,
a
I mean,
disaster.
yeah.
No, it was terrifying. I mean, you couldn't go out at night.
No,
So
42nd Street was a dangerous place. Now it's Disney World.
yeah. Although
Times Square.
it's funny you say that, because Melrose in LA is now a dangerous place. So we're sort of coming full circle, at least in the West Coast, with all homelessness and crime. Anyway, we're getting off track. Let's get.
All right. So let's get back to you. All right. So I wanted to ask you this. You kind of already answered this in some ways, but what is something that you learned from going to Oakwood School that you take with you today? Or
Interesting. Well, it was a liberal arts high school, and it was very embracing and accepting and liberal. And I guess a lot of my belief systems, my political beliefs are were supported. I mean,
yeah.
I grew up like that. That's where my family came from. I mean,
Was there a lot of people at that school that were in the industry or in that kind of world?
Let's see. There was Todd Haynes, the director.
Oh, wow.
Liz McGovern. There was
from Once Upon a Time in America.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm a big
Uh,
film buff.
yes. I'm not so much, in all honesty. We can.
Well, you were around it, so like for
That's
me,
true. That's
this
true.
was like the movies were like my only way. I'm kind of like the Quentin Tarantino. I'm just like,
I know.
watching everything.
As you should. I
Is
mean,
you?
he's brilliant. He's
Yeah.
absolutely. He's up there with the greats. He's up there with Scorsese,
Yeah.
Spielberg.
Absolutely.
He is. You know.
No,
So,
no, absolutely agree.
yeah.
So that's awesome that Liz McGovern was there. Wow. It's a sad story that happened in that
It's a little
film
starstruck.
once upon a time. I mean, it got destroyed in the editing process when it came to here,
Yes.
but
Yes. Did you
if they
see the
had left
4-hour
it alone,
version?
I think it would have been fine. Hmm?
Wasn't there a 4-hour version of that movie?
Yeah, it's a 4-hour version now that you can watch. They kind of restored it, but
Right.
he originally envisioned it to be 2 3-hour movies.
Right.
He wanted it to be like a 6-hour epic, but they wouldn't let him do it. I was like, just let him do what he wanted to do.
Right. It's because
But,
Netflix didn't exist yet. He would have
yeah,
been.
if
He's
Netflix,
like,
well, that's one of the good
yeah, you want
things
to do
about
3-hour movies? Come
streaming.
on in. Here's
Yeah.
$4,000 million. Knock
Yeah.
yourself
I
out.
mean, nowadays you can't. Yeah, back then you were like, you were. I think somebody, what was it? James Woods said that it was cut by the guy who did Police Academy, the
That's
American
right.
version, and it's like, well,
I
that's
read that
that's why
article.
it doesn't make any sense because it's like
I
they took out all the
Right.
non-linear aspects
What
of
you
it.
know what's crazier is that I just literally read an article about a week ago about specifically this movie and about the fact that it
Hmm.
was the Police Academy editor who edited it. Crazy. Yeah. Anyway, um, what else you got?
Okay, so doing my research, I saw that you worked with Judd Apatow, and as soon as I saw Knocked Up and I saw the where you were, I was like, I knew exactly where you were in the scene. What I didn't realize is that you were also in a scene with Paul Feig, or is it Paul Feig?
Oh,
I've heard two different versions of it.
I think it's
Yeah,
Feig.
Paul Feig. That's what I thought of. Yeah, you were in that, and you were also in Funny People. I couldn't find you in Funny People. I don't know if
Funny
that was.
People, I was the husband of the brother-in-law, or I was the brother-in-law. I was in the pool, and I think we had a few lines together.
Okay. Okay.
And by the
I
way,
think I found that, but yeah.
let's clarify. The reason I was in those movies
Hmm.
was, let's be honest, it was nepotism, in the sense that
Mm,
my ex-wife was
mm,
best friends with Leslie Mann all through high school.
mm,
And I uh, I was friends with Leslie, who coincidentally was, when I was teaching acting, was a in the school that I taught at, the
okay.
Joanne Vandy Brown Studio. So then I started. My ex-wife was a student who I started dating after she graduated. It's a 2-year program, Meyerson.
Mm,
And then eventually Leslie met Judd on Cable Guy.
yeah,
And
that's fair.
we all became friends for 20 years.
Oh wow.
And so Judd is actually it's not like we stopped becoming friends. We ultimately, hold on, I gotta plug my, it says low battery.
Okay.
So Judd and I were actually, and our families were friends for 20 years. Went on vacations together, hung out, 2-3 times a week.
Wow.
And so I know him very, very, very well. And he was kind enough to give me roles in his movies. Hold on. Um, that's the truth. That's
Hmm.
true. Did I audition for him? Yes, I did.
Hmm.
But I was also in Love, his series that he
Freaks and Geeks.
Yes, no, Freaks and Geeks. No, Love is Judd Apatow's series that is.
Oh yeah, yeah, you were in that. I saw that. I couldn't find.
You
I
couldn't
couldn't find
find me?
what. Well, no, I could find. I couldn't find the
Oh, the
episode. It didn't
episode. Yeah,
say.
I forget which of. It's like 3 or 4. It's a really funny scene, actually. You should.
All right, I will. I will. I will. I will go and find that. Did you? What did you learn from like watching him like run a set? Did you find that interesting or?
I did. Um, especially actually in Love, I really got to work with him as a director. Um, it was more of a substantial role, and
Hmm.
virtually the entire scene was improvised.
Yeah.
So what I got from him was that there is that you don't necessarily have to have a plan. That it's all about. I mean, obviously you have a plan, you have a basic structure, but like what was in the script that he gave me had very, very little to do what ended up on screen.
Hmm.
It was all improvised. It was utilizing what the actors brought to their characters and finding the funny in the moment.
Yeah.
Just throwing shit out there and seeing what sticks. And there's a fearlessness in that.
Yeah.
It's just like, but I guess that comes with his experience and the confidence that comes with it. But it was fun. It was fun because he just let you go. And I had a great rapport with the other actor, and we would just bounce off and play off of each other. And we came up with some stuff that was just some of the funniest stuff didn't end up in the actual
Yeah.
the episode, but at least I thought.
That happens a lot on his films. I've seen like, alternate takes of like from Knocked Up, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, that was funnier than what was in the movie. Why isn't that in the movie?
Yes. And I don't have an answer to that question. I have a guess, and that is that whatever he ended up putting in the movie, because these were all very, very successful movies,
Yeah.
served the story and the character and the relationships more so, and more importantly than, oh, but that's really funny. That it revealed something or connected the audience to the characters or the characters to one another that was more important ultimately. And the thing about his comedies, and one of the reasons they called him the king of comedy, and one of the reasons his movies, have done so well and have connected on a visceral level to the audience, is because of their humanity. That you feel it's a comedy, but it's not just ha ha ha, joke joke joke.
Yeah.
But it's character driven, it's relationship driven. So you're invested, so you're laughing, but you're also impacted and
Yeah.
connected to this whole experience. So you're laughing and you're crying in the next moment, and you care, I guess.
Well, it's kind of like the difference between a Family Guy and South Park. South Park, a lot of the jokes are driven to the story,
Right.
so that you're feeling it as it goes. And whereas Family Guy is more relies on gags
Yes.
and, split sex, that's why it's very
Which
hard to
which
remember a
is
joke to Family Guy.
yes. Which
Yeah.
is hilarious, and there's
Yeah.
certainly a place for it. And it's but that's not what he did. He wanted to make movies. He didn't
Yeah.
want to just make skits, you
Yeah.
know. He wanted to make movies. And I think Funny People was, his attempt to really, really make a film.
Yeah. I remember seeing it. And I was like, this is different from what he's been doing, because he's really going into some of the deep, the character that Adam Sandler plays in it. He's dealing
Yes.
with cancer.
Yes.
That's not always rife for a comedy. And
Right.
I think he did a good job of balancing it out, but I just don't know if the audience who had seen Knocked Up
No.
and 40-Year-Old Virgin were ready for that thing. And it kind of didn't really explain it in the advertising, which I think is
Mm-mm.
one of the
No,
mistakes.
it was misleading. You thought you were going to
Yeah.
get knocked up, or
Yeah. It's like, no.
40-Year-Old Virgin.
Sad.
No, and it was also considerably longer,
Yeah. It's a
than-
3-hour film almost.
Yeah, yeah. So,
And that's
but,
hard to do with comedy.
good for
Yeah.
him, good for him.
So tell me a little bit about Society 1989.
Oh, God. That was 1989. That was a long time ago. Was it 89? Jesus, I thought it was more mid 80s, but that makes sense. That was a movie. Start with that.
Yeah, 1989 is when it came out.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I remember getting the script, and I was with my girlfriend and her best friend, and we left my agency, and I read the first page in the car. I was in the back seat, and I read it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get this." I was young. I was 23, I think, at the time, and I had just come out of training in the Meisner method for 2 years, and I was, I had a tremendous amount of confidence, and I had no idea what the business was like, which was actually served me. And I decided to go against type. I remember the character Ferguson. I saw him as a real, first of all, he was definitely a blonde. He was very, very preppy. It was a bit stereotypical, and I decided I'm going to just go against all of that. And I came in with my interpretation of the part. And it was a little more intense than what was on the page. And, I got the part. And it ended up being it only lasted a week in the theaters. It was a complete flop. And then it picked up steam in foreign, and in France. Apparently I'm like a huge star, and it's now this cult classic that you have to see, by the way. And the rest is history. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any ideas why you think it flopped in America? Was it just the timing? Did they release it in January?
It was just
weird.
It's weird. Yes. They, it had it was all about class warfare, really.
Yeah.
And these wealthy, I don't want to give too much away, and so this wealthy cult of either were they were either mutants who had evolved over time, or they were an alien race who landed on the
Hmm.
planet millions of years. We never really
Yeah.
know. But and there was all these sexual undertones. Like
Yeah.
there was basically this society would recruit people from and God, it's so long ago now, I'm sorry, but there was a process called shunting, and it was basically an orgy,
Hmm.
except all of the participants would meld or into or melt, literally melt
Hmm.
into each other. So their flesh would melt into each other.
Yeah.
And but it was like sex. So I don't think the world was ready for that in '89. I think they
That's a
were,
good point.
I think they were like, I don't know what the fuck this movie is about. And he did try to make a statement about, the classes and about, and it had sort of a political sensibility about it.
Okay, here's what I just found out. It
Uh,
came out June 11th, 1992. So that
oh, it
at
did?
that time, the film that came out at that time was Batman Returns. It was like around that was like the
Okay.
other big box office film at that time.
Got
So,
it. Oh,
interesting.
you think it was Batman that knocked
I
it
I
off
I
the
think
radar?
I think it could have heard it. I think release it in June at that time because it's more of a I think it's more of a Halloween. I would have put it, but they
Got it.
released Donnie Darko around September and it still didn't do well. But it was released the day after, the week after September 11th. So that
Yeah.
was not gonna that wasn't gonna fly at that time.
This was also
Um,
Brian Yuzna's first film. Brian Yuzna had produced the first film he directed, Reanimator
I love the
1 and
Reanimator.
2.
That's a great
Huh?
film. I love the Reanimator. That's a
Yeah.
great film.
So this was his directing debut, and he didn't pull any punches. He just wanted to make the film that he wanted to make, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe it could have just been logistics, and that there was
Yeah.
too much competition at the time. It was released at the wrong time of the year,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I really
I mean,
don't.
it's always fascinating to see
But
what
you have to
films will
see it.
work. And I definitely
It's a
am.
film everybody has to see because it's so different and it's so unique, and it's bold, especially for back then. I
Yeah.
think is it the greatest movie ever made? No, for sure not. But it's a fucking ride. It's just it's silly at the same time. I mean, I would definitely. I would recommend it highly to anybody. Yeah,
Interesting. So you touched on this. You talked about you studied Meisner. Where did you
yeah.
study Meisner?
It was Joanne Baron's studio,
Hmm.
um, which is now the Joanne Baron D.W. Brown studio. D.W. Brown being her husband of many decades, um, ever since I knew her, which was back in the '80s. And yeah, so I studied there. I studied there, and then I ended up teaching there for
Wow.
10 years.
What was it about the Meisner technique that pushed you toward that technique? Was there
Oh, interesting.
something special about it?
It was, yes. Oh, yes, 100%. It was the first school and the first technique that I felt gave me the tangible tools to get to where I wanted to as an actor. Like I
Hmm.
had taken a lot of classes, and there was something, and all of them were just sort of amorphous. They just didn't really,
Hmm.
there was nothing that you could just step by step get to where you needed to be. And
Yeah.
this was very, very much designed, the Meisner technique, to go from the very, very basic, and then it build one step builds on the other, and ultimately, I mean, God, I mean, we could spend hours talking about this technique,
Yeah.
because I really do. It's fascinating to me. Meisner is a genius
Hmm.
in that. Do you know anything about Meisner?
I did. I studied Meisner at the
All
neighborhood
right.
Playhouse in New York. So
Okay, so you know
I know all the,
That's
yeah,
right. So the repetition exercise, which is, for those who don't know what it is, it's basically you. How do you describe it? I taught this for 10
I
years.
mean, it's hard. I mean, first you kind of start with, we start with the repetition, then we kind of go into, we start adding the activity, the
Right.
knock at the door,
Yes. Knock at the
the,
door. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
and nobody knows what the fuck we're talking about right now, of course, and nor do they need to. What they need to know is all of that is very, very, very specifically designed for actors to be acting behaviorally versus literally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it forces you to Meisner is all about looking what the other person is doing. That's the very fundamental difference between it and
Right.
Strasberg.
Right. But the way they do this, he does
Hmm.
is by reading behavior versus, like, I can say, I love you. And I can say, I love you. And I can say, I love you.
Yeah.
And I can say that a million different ways. And I love you can mean I hate your fucking guts. It can mean I'm totally indifferent to you. It can mean I adore you. It has nothing to do with the literal meaning of the words.
Yeah.
And it's all about behavior. And that distinction is so important when you're acting. And then, so as actors, you learn to read behavior and connect to behavior. And it's not just reading it, but it's being impacted, affected, and led through your partner's behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean, they told us in class, they said, we're going to teach you to be, um, excuse my language, but bullshit detectors.
that's right. Right. That's absolutely right. That's spot on. It's like that, and it also, so the thing, it not only changed my acting, but it changed my life. It changed
Yeah.
who I was. And I didn't expect that. I hoped for it because I wanted that, but it forces you as an actor to be you lose by taking all of your attention and putting it on the other person or the activity, whatever it is that you're focused on, by taking all of your attention off of yourself,
Doing it fully.
Doing
it.
Exactly. You lose self-consciousness. You lose self-awareness. You are solely and wholly focused on something outside of, or someone outside of yourself. Okay. And what my most profound discovery was, in doing so, I found myself. That I truly found who I am. Once the self-criticism, once the voices stopped, once the filter was eliminated, that who I truly was, wholly and fully, as a person, was revealed.
Yeah.
But it took me taking all of my attention. But you can't just not think about yourself. You have to think about something, or you have not think, but you have to be
Yeah.
focused on something or someone outside of yourself to reveal who you really
Yeah.
are. And that revelation is probably to this day the most profound revelation that I've ever had.
Interesting.
Which was, that was the secret, that was the key, was forgetting yourself in order to find yourself.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Now you did 2 years there, right?
Yeah. As a student, I did 2 years, yes. And in that
And
2
then you
years,
taught for 10 years.
I taught for 10 years. I didn't audition because at that time it was kind of forbidden that you need to devote, and that's how it was originally intended by Meisner, is if you're studying your craft, if you are, you need to.
Yeah, you couldn't do anything else.
Nothing else.
You couldn't do short films on the side. You couldn't. You got 4 scripts in the first year.
Right. Oh, was that
And,
how it was at the neighborhood playhouse?
At the neighborhood playhouse, yeah, we only had 4 scripts. Like
Really?
each.
Wait, you only
That's
had
it.
4 scripts?
We only were given 4. Well, each of us were given. We got 4 scripts through it. So, 1 quarter. Here's your script at the end.
Oh, I
here's
see.
Another script. Yeah, there weren't just 4 scripts that were just like, we weren't all doing the same scene,
No,
but
I know
there
that,
were
yeah.
4. But
Right.
yeah, but we just got, we only had,
that's pretty much how it was. Yeah.
For me, I was pretty upset because I didn't get into the second year, and that just devastated me. Yeah, because at there you had to set it up. You had to like go through this thing. And I remember looking at it, I was like, I gave up everything for that. My cousins were down for Thanksgiving. Like, I can only stay 1 day, and ran up there. This was during Hurricane Sandy. The lights were out. I walked to school. I did so many things, and I just felt so completely betrayed by the effect of it. So I was just like, I put my heart and soul into this. And I even talked to the headmaster, who said, look, if there was one more person, we were trying to get him to put more people into you, but he wouldn't budge. He said, you were like the next on the list. He said, all your teachers wanted you.
Right.
Just the guy making the decision didn't want me. And I kind of like went there. I was like, okay, well, if he doesn't really want to work with me, then this probably isn't going to be good anyways.
Right.
So then I did Strasbourg. I did that for a year. And
really?
I preferred Neighborhood Place because that was, you got there at like 9 and you were there till like 4 o'clock. And there was no time to do like anything else but Meisner. You sat in the class, you watched them do repetition. Yeah. We did a little bit of speech. If I looked back on it, I would have said that's one of the things I think that a lot of the schools miss on that, that I've seen with England, is speech should be more important. How you say words. And I feel that's like, one, you have to have people that know how to teach that. It's really hard to find people that teach that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really, in Meiser in particular, it's the opposite. And the message is the words mean nothing.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Yeah, the words mean nothing in Meiser.
It's all behavior. So it's the polar
it's all behavior.
opposite.
Yeah.
And is there a happy medium? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I will say, the criticism to the English school of acting was always back in the day, well, they don't really feel things. They just fake it.
Yeah.
It's all how they speak. That isn't so true.
No, because I found somebody in New York who actually knew how. He went to Central, and I was like, okay, I want you to teach me what you learn. I still work with him to this day.
Right.
And I found that through speech, the emotions would come out naturally through the speech. It would prepare me for that.
Yeah. There's
You know,
there's a million ways to skin a cat.
there really is. There really is.
You know, and I think language is, well, all I have to say is
Yeah.
I have this game I play with my girlfriend. I'll be
Yeah.
watching a performance. I'll be watching TV, and we'll be watching, Netflix, Prime,
Yeah.
Hulu, whatever. And I'll say he's English, and it's an actor who's doing an American accent or something. I'll say,
Yeah.
he's an English actor.
Yeah. You
And
can tell.
I say that when it's a performance that is nuanced, emotional, extraordinarily specific in the choices, and 100% committed. There's no wishy-washiness. There's no naturalism. It's just, I'm just being real.
Yeah.
That everything they do is, wow. It's poignant. It stands out. It's clear that they made a choice, but it's, and those are always English actors.
Mm.
That across board, it's like it's so there is something to that kind of training,
Yeah.
and trained in the classics as well.
That's a thing that I wish we instilled more of here, because when you do the classics, they're not doing the classics because they want you to do Shakespeare. They're doing the classics because by doing classics, you're going to know how to do anything else.
That's right.
And I wish that would be like told to people and be like, that's why we're doing Shakespeare. That's why we're not doing it just because we want you to do Shakespeare.
Right.
It's to prepare you, because if you can do that, you'll be able to do anything.
Anything.
Yeah, every character has been almost written. It's in Shakespeare. If you play some kind of alien-like character, we can look at Caliban. I mean, they're all there.
Yeah.
So it prepares you for it. So I'm glad that I got a mix of all of them. I mean, with Meisner, I was there for a year. Like, that's all I did was Meisner. Then I did Strasberg. Strasberg was more set up.
The first year of Meisner is where you get that, where you develop and hone that skill of
the other person,
and moment to moment acting and improvisation and living behaviorally through an experience versus, developing that bullshit detector.
Yeah.
That's where you get it. Is the first year. The second year becomes much more technical, and it may be a detriment to some actors, because you get very, very friggin' heady. And I taught second year, and my goal was try to take the headiness out of it, to make it something that was way more accessible and intuitive and improvisational and more like first year, because you could get very bogged down by just creating emotional preparations for every single.
Well, it's the same thing with Strasberg. Okay, I'm going to create rain on my hand, and it's like
the coffee cup. The coffee.
Yeah, or the coffee cup. Yeah. The coffee cup, the drinking through it's like there's not enough time to do all that.
There's just not. I'm sorry. I gotta go get a job. I gotta make some cash.
Just give me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What is he doing? We need you on the set now.
Yeah, right.
Hold on, just give me a second.
Yeah, no, hold on.
Hold on, I've got to stir it.
I got to feel the warmth. Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
it's like,
I know.
so
I tried Strasberg for about 20 minutes. And by the way, you can't knock that some of the greatest actors of all time came
no,
out of
all of them
know,
I took things from.
And Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. Nobody will ever play a part like what he accomplished in that role.
Here's something though that
And
doesn't
it's
get talked about
extraordinary. It's
with,
like the level of honesty and reality that is achieved, in some of these performances, especially like in the 70s.
but yeah, you hit on it. You hit the nail on the head with the 70s. It was
Yeah.
a very dangerous
Different,
time. So when
dangerous
you were
time.
standing still
Right.
outside, there was fear. You were surrounded by fear.
Oh,
So this is
interesting.
why when like a lot of people say, just do nothing, it's like, well, it depends on the time period. Back in that
Right.
time period, when you were standing still, you're still surrounded by a New York that wants to kill you. Today, we don't have that kind of fear. I don't know, and it's something that really can't be, it can kind of be taught, but this is something that's so like in the in the world. And the
Right.
world has become so, we've talked about at the beginning, it's so safe, which
Right.
makes it, whereas then, like if you look at some actors, I've talked to acting teachers who have worked with people in like the Sudan and stuff like that.
Sure.
They're all like, they're just always ready because they're
Well,
in that fight or flight world.
yeah, you took the words out of my
Yeah.
mouth. It's a fight or flight reality that they live in. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, um, I've never really, I'll be honest with you, I've never really looked at, the influence of environment, society,
Mhm.
time, a time and a place in terms of acting.
Yeah.
Um, but you make a very, very good point that, how can it not influence or affect
Yeah.
who you are as a human being and therefore who you are as an actor?
Yeah.
Um,
Like you
yeah,
look at somebody in like an 80s film and they've only got like 5 lines or so.
right,
There's something different about that person.
right.
And then you look at the person that has only 5 lines today, and it's like it's almost night and day. I'm talking about like look at Back to the Future
Right.
when excuse my coarseness, but the bum guy, that when he shows up there, there, I'm like,
Yes.
there's such
Right.
realness even there
Right.
that I don't see in that role today.
Right. Right. Hmm.
I know we're getting to things that like
No,
there's
we
like
are.
no
I
real
love it.
solution to it.
No, there's not. No, but I actually do have the solution, and here it is.
Hmm.
No, I'm kidding. I don't. I have all of the answers.
I have it right here.
That's
Let me.
why I'm being interviewed because I'm a genius. No, I don't. I don't. But God, we just went really deep, didn't we?
I know. I know.
Yeah.
I knew we
No,
were
but
going to
but
go
but
deep.
I,
It's just to talk.
there's a part of me that wants to defend actors today and say, well, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll defend actors today.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to one of the questions you sent to me at the very
Okay. All
end.
right. Jump to it.
Okay, and it is what am I watching? What I'm watching is The White Lotus.
That's a really good show. My mother
Okay,
loves that show. I haven't watched it, but yeah.
and the performances there are just A plus, man. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the subtlety. Even if the guy,
I'm not talking about those so much the leads. I'm talking more about the smaller parts.
smaller parts.
I see a difference in that specifically, not so much
Oh,
in leads and things like, yes,
got it.
there's good acting all over, but
Sure, of
in
course.
these
Okay,
smaller roles,
right.
you're not seeing like this level of realness
Oh
that
well,
was
I can
there.
attribute that to there is well what we were just talking about is I don't have 3 hours to to spend with my coffee cup. I just need a job so I can pay my rent
Yeah.
and so I can survive in a world that is unforgiving.
Yeah.
That it's I mean, to be an artist you you do
No, you have to
need,
deal with a lot.
you have to deal with a lot, but you do need time to practice your art, you
Yes.
know? And what I would say is that in we're going way on a tangent,
No, but no, this is what I want to hear from you because
is
this is
is that, and these are just my beliefs and taking belief,
yeah.
but that for young people, look, I'm older than you. And when I grew up, I could get in LA, I could get I had a, I had a studio apartment in a decent part of Hollywood, kind of centrally located, for $525 a month. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was probably making 1,200 bucks a month. And this is when I just started coaching and teaching. And I was also doing acting jobs. And, and I was living comfortably.
Yeah.
I could survive. I could, but I was not starving in the street, and I could practice, my craft. I could focus on my acting. I could do plays for no money. I did a ton of plays.
That's the sad thing. Yeah. Plays are
Yeah,
they're so
I
scarce
can't
now.
say. I mean, I have a 19-year-old son, and it scares the shit out of me because I don't know how the fuck he would be able to do that. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily have the money to support him. I mean, my dad,
Yeah.
as well as he did, he had two major hit shows. He wasn't great with money. So
Mm.
by the time I was in my, I was 21, his money was, he was living
Yeah.
on pension, and he didn't have money. He wasn't supporting me. So I was on my own, but it was a hell of a lot easier. Cost of living
Yeah.
was not what it is now.
Well, New York
And
used to have apartments that were designed just for artists,
right,
and they got rid of it.
the size of
This is
closets, but still,
capitalism, has completely, it's just like
it's failed us.
there's no end. So we'll take, anything with some form of land, let's do it, and let's charge as much as we can from it. And it's
Yes,
like, but
yes, and it was
here's the other
inevitable.
cost of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this is
it
what
was
happens when you,
inevitable because capitalism, unregulated,
yeah,
which is what capitalists want, is
yeah.
unregulated capitalism, is it's survival of the fittest ultimately.
Yes. There's
It's,
that absolute belief that like, if
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not doing well, you must be lazy. There's something wrong with you.
that's right.
And this is, and there is that culture now that's been built in, it started in the 80s and it's just kind of, I would
Yes.
even say it
And
starts
who did
in
it
kind of
start
maybe the
with?
late 70s. What?
In the late 70s. But who did it really start with?
I would say Reagan,
Yeah,
the
you would.
Reagan
You'd
era
be
is
right, and
he's the,
you'd be absolutely right.
yeah.
You
Because he
know,
embraced the banks and he
he
embraced the
embraced
whole
the
bringing
banks.
up.
He embraced credit. People didn't have credit cards in the 70s, but I think they had diners
That's a
club.
good, that's a great way to,
They
yeah.
didn't have credit cards.
The
Credit
beginning
cards
of credit
became
cards.
the it's like, oh, I'm rich now. No, you're
Yeah.
not. You're making the banks rich. You're not
Yeah.
rich. And
And here's how we get you.
right.
If you
Yeah,
don't pay this premium, oh, well, that's okay. But we're just going to keep tacking on this to it.
that's
It's
right.
like,
The interest rates and
it's
just
a cycle.
yeah.
And
And
it's like, there's
debt
ways to beat
wasn't a
it, but
debt
yeah,
wasn't a thing before the 80s, really, not in the same way that it was
that's it.
post the 80s and Reagan.
Yeah.
And the other thing is unions. He was a
Yeah.
union break buster. He was
He was.
anti-union, and it was really a reaction. It was reactionary because in the 70s, the unions had sort of reached the height of their power and influence. And yes, to some extent, they were taking advantage of it. They had so much power that they, like the auto workers were becoming lazy and just not showing up to work and taking advantage of the rights that they
Have you
had.
seen that film, A Most Violent Year? That film there, that's like 1981.
Right.
So was it Reagan was like what 79? I forget exactly what year
Yeah.
Reagan took power, but
80.
you can see, you can see that idea. Yeah, the unions run everything. You know, it's like if we say the workers don't work today, they're not showing up.
Right. Right. And yeah, and there was truth to that, but it, as it does, the pendulum swung so far in the other direction that that's where we are today, where you have a you have minimum wage that hasn't really changed in decades. I mean, it's
Yeah.
now starting to little by little.
Yeah.
And you have economic discrepancy that is, the wage, I mean, not the wage, but the economic discrepancy between the rich and poor now is so far beyond what it even was in, pre the market crash in 1929.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I would agree.
That
I think the solution is really balance, getting that
Yeah.
pendulum somewhere here, so where they balance each other out.
Well, I'll tell you where the balance is, and we had it here in America. We had figured it out. We had it down, and it was from about 1940s to 1970s.
Yep. We're talking
Was
like
the land of
FDR type of thing.
FDR.
He figured it out.
The land of opportunity. That was when you could be a mailman and you could have 3-4 kids,
Yeah.
own your own home, send them all to college,
Yeah.
and have a retirement.
Companies used to pay for people to go to
And have
college,
pensions.
send their workers to go to college. Now
All of that is gone. Thank you, Reagan. Because
Yeah.
he started the ball rolling. And the 80s was like, fuck, everybody was thrilled. Everybody's making money because they have credit cards.
Yeah.
And, and all the regulations are kaput. So, stocks are going through the roof and everybody's fucking making money. Everybody's doing cocaine. Everybody's thrilled.
And what happened in 87?
Yes. There you go.
We pushed it so hard and it's like,
right.
Wait,
what
happened?
And by the way, he left in 88 and he happens term after term where he left a completely demolished economy to he left it to
to Bush Senior.
Yes, but oftentimes what's happening is that the
and the same thing happened with Exhibit B of Bush. You can see the same thing with the market crash at the end of his term.
Right.
There's patterns.
Who did he hand it to? Obama. And that's what continues. If you haven't,
it continues, and it's like, why are we not learning these lessons? It's like it's right in front of us. Here's this. History is giving us the blueprint. Let's learn from it. No, let's just keep.
Well, that's the big question: is why are we not learning? And I wish I had the answer to that one, because
here's what I think. One of the things
we're worse than ever right now. I mean,
this is making is keep. I think this in some ways, because this is a tool. This can be used for good, but it's just like the television.
Yes.
If it consumes somebody 100% and they don't read anymore and they don't look for other forms of stimulus, it becomes the only thing they're getting. And now with TikTok, which is making people
are
so 35 seconds.
They're getting their news from TikTok and Instagram.
That's another thing.
I had a talk with my nephew who's 21. He's in his junior year of college. And I said, I go, where do you get your news? Well, online. I'm like, okay, at least the least you could do is just put your preferences into Apple News
Yeah.
and and choose that news sources that you trust, or I'll tell you which ones are
There you
trust.
go.
Just trust me, and then get your
That's not
wake
many.
up, get you, because I know,
Same here.
get your news from that, but fucking don't get it from TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
It's insane. And it's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, we're becoming also a society that doesn't ask questions. That's the thing that I don't think gets talked about enough is educated societies would be like, what are you doing? This isn't here. But if you keep everybody at a certain level, nobody's going to be raise up and say, this is not fair. This is not right. So you keep everybody, it's very similar to in history. We're
Why do
giving them
you think?
entertainment.
Why do you think public education has been defunded over the
Yeah.
last 50 years? It has. I mean, our public education system is in shambles,
Yeah.
and that's by design. That is
Yes.
on purpose. There are people in government, Republicans, who
No offense to all the Republicans out there.
sorry,
Just
no,
skip
no,
this part.
yes, right.
I'm going to put
But
it
that
down.
is my belief system. Take it for what it is. I think that the Republican Party is not what it used to be 50 years ago. Let's just say.
No, it's
And
not. This
it is.
this started kind of with Newt Gingrich too. He's the one who really started
Yes.
after
Well,
when you get to
the
Clinton.
corporatization of the Republican Party, they're bought and sold, dude. Now, not that we are impervious as the Democratic Party to outside
Absolutely.
influence, but
No, I think that's part of the problem is that both parties are very much entwined with these systems that they're
yes,
trying
but,
to,
but there's no way you're going to convince me that especially where the Republican Party is now, that
no.
they're the same thing.
No, they're not the same. But I'm saying, but they do kind of dabble with it.
Party here, and then you got the
Yeah.
Democratic Party here, in
Yeah.
terms of where we are ethically, and in terms of
Well, we're becoming now a society also where we don't accept election results either. We're like, oh, I didn't lose, but you didn't get the most votes. No, something happened to it, and it's like
yeah, but who started
that leads to anarchy. If we can't decide, if we can't like go, all right, these are the rules.
Right.
Here are we. Somebody wins,
Right.
somebody loses. It's not always going to be your guy.
No.
Okay, that about does it. I want to thank my guest, Ben Meyerson. This is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. As always, you can find me at Justin Yachts. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving it a subscribe and maybe a review. And I will see you next time on the DMF.